Okay, in this video, we're going to look at some common question types for the IELTS reading test. This is important because it'll help you become familiar with the different types of questions that you might get on the test. I also want to show you some different strategies for answering the different types of questions. In this video, we're going to look at three types of questions: information classification, matching headings, and matching information. So here is an example reading from the grade website. We can see here that we only have a title. This means that we're going to have to skim the reading to get an overview of what the reading is about. So I want to give you a chance to practice your skimming skills. Don't worry if you can't finish all of the skimming in the time that I give you. You can always press the pause button and these pages will be displayed again throughout the video. But take some time now, skim, which again means you're going to read the first paragraph and then the first sentence of each other paragraph. Okay, to review, you should have read the first paragraph. This is important because this is usually an overview of what the rest of the reading is about. So in this case, mindfulness, the process of learning to become more aware of our ongoing experiences, increases well-being in adolescent boys, and new study reports. So we're going to predict that this is going to be about the study in terms of mindfulness for adolescent or teenage boys. Then we've skimmed the first sentence of each paragraph. In most cases, that is the topic sentence, so that's going to tell us what each paragraph is about. I'm going to play the rest of the pages for you, and I'm going to give you what I think is probably enough time to skim each page. Again, don't worry if you can't keep up, but this will give you a good indication of how quickly you need to be skimming in the test. Obviously, you have to do 3 readings and you have a 60-minute time limit. Don't forget, part of that 60 minutes is also to transfer your answers to the answer paper. So you will have to improve your reading speed. Okay, let's stop there. What we're going to do next is move on to our first bunch of questions. So these questions are information classification questions. In the test, always read the instructions carefully. So I'm going to give you a chance to read these instructions. So what we need to do is match the terms such as psychological well-being with the definitions in list A. But obviously there are more terms than we have definitions. Now, your focus should be on scanning. What I'm going to do in this part of the video is show you how I would answer this question. So obviously, what I'm going to do first is look in the reading for the term psychological well-being, or perhaps a synonym for that term. And what happens, I scan through, I find psychological well-being in the reading. However, there is no definition given for this word on this page or on the following page. So then I simply move on to the next term. Just make some notes on your question paper. In this case, I'm going to cross out psychological well-being. Then I'm going to scan for positive emotions or a synonym for this expression or another term. Now, I find positive emotions underlined in green on the first page. Then I can see the writer has given some examples, such as happiness, contentment, interest, and affection. I go back to the question paper. Now, I can see in the definitions, feelings such as contentment, interest, and affection. I'm quite sure that this is the answer, so I simply put question 3, B. I cross out positive emotions, then I'm going to move on to the next term. I'm going to scan for mindfulness. So on the first page, underlined in green, mindfulness, then we have what looks like the definition, the process of learning to become more aware of our ongoing experiences. However, this doesn't really seem to match the definition for 1. So this is a way of paying attention to the present without judgments. So I'm going to do some more scanning. As I move on through the reading, I find mindfulness again. And here, this looks like more of a definition, underlined in yellow. I'll give you a chance to read that. Now we can see, from what I've underlined from the reading, this matches more closely to the definition which is given in 1. So, mindfulness, C, is the answer to question 1. Then I move on to awareness. Again, I'm going to scan for awareness or a synonym. Now, awareness seems to be quite a frequently used word, so I've underlined it in green, and I'm going to scan the rest of the paper. But in most cases, there doesn't seem to be a matching definition. So I'm going to move on to the final term, which is resilience. Again, I'm going to scan through the reading for this term. And we can see on this page, resilience, it's bracketed with a definition. The ability to modify responses to changing situations. Very clearly, this is the answer to question 2. So this is the best way to answer information classification questions. The focus should be on scanning. I'm going to use the same reading for these next bunch of questions, which is matching headings. Again, read the instructions very carefully. Now, this is a very common question type, and your focus is not so much going to be on scanning, rather the focus is going to be on skimming. Because what you need to do is imagine if the reading were to have headings, what would be the heading for each paragraph or each section? So I'll give you a chance to review this. Now we can see here that section A has been done as an example. So section A, the heading would be Meditation Increases Wellbeing in Adolescent Boys. But what we need to do next is skim again the entire reading. So just to review, skimming would involve the first paragraph, which is an overview, and then the first sentence of each other paragraph. For this example, I've added in the letters to indicate each section. So I'll give you a chance to skim and just skim what I've underlined. Okay, let's move on to the questions. Now, matching headings is a very common question type on IELTS reading tests. As you can see, we've done some skimming, so hopefully you have an overview of what the reading is about, and you have some references for where to find the keywords which we're going to scan for. Now, what are the keywords to scan for? Well, this is your choice. Go for words that you think will be easy to find, or have synonyms which you think will be easy to find. So for heading 1, pre-test and post-test questionnaires, I'm going to try scan for the term questionnaires. As I scan through the reading, I find in section E the expression questionnaires before and after. Now I'm going to read that whole sentence again that I've skimmed before. All participants completed a short series of online questionnaires before and after the mindfulness project. So to me, clearly that best represents the meaning, or the best heading would be for section E, pre-test and post-test, before and after questionnaires. So I'm quite confident I'm going to answer that, and I move on to the next heading, which is a short one, trial schools. Now I'm going to scan for the word schools. I think that might be easy to find in the reading. And in section B, I can see the term UK schools in two examples, Tonbridge and Hampton. Now perhaps these could be the trial schools. So I check. I read what I've skimmed again. Researchers from the University of Cambridge analysed 155 boys from two independent schools, Tonbridge and Hampton, before and after a 4-week crash course in mindfulness. So, to me, the trial schools were Tonbridge and Hampton. So I'm going to say that the best heading for section B is trial schools, number 2. Then I move on to heading 3, effectiveness of the training. I'm going to be scanning for anything related to training or effectiveness, and I realize that this may be worded in different ways. So as I scan through, I can see the term training and benefits in section C, and then in section D, I can also see benefited most from the training. Now, I'm a little unsure, so I put a question mark and I continue to do some more scanning because neither of those really seem to match the heading itself. As I move on, I do some more scanning. I find the term training in section F. Then I move on to the second paragraph and it reads, Professor Hubbard continued, we believe that the effects of mindfulness training can enhance well-being in a number of ways. And this is why I've underlined the next part, because I need to confirm the meaning. If you practice being in the present, you can increase positive feelings by savoring pleasurable, ongoing experiences. So to me, that has the best meaning for the effectiveness of the training. So I answer heading 3, I match that with section F. Then I move on to the next heading, the next step. Now, this is a hard question, and when you scan, you're going to get questions which are hard to identify. If this one took you a long time in the test, put a time limit on that and just move on to the next one if you can't find the answer. But I want to show you the answer to the next step, and it can be found in section G. From what we've skimmed, we can see the topic sentence here is, the success of this initial study has recently led to the creation of an exciting 8-week mindfulness curriculum for schools in both the state and private sectors. So this sounds like a plan which is going to be implemented or has been implemented. So that has the same meaning as the next step. So section G should have the heading, the next step. Then we move on to the next heading, healthier minds. So I'm going to be scanning for anything related to health or the mind. And I can find mental health in section C. So more and more we are realizing the importance of supporting the overall mental health of children. So I need to confirm that that is the best heading. So I move to the next sentence. And it says, our study demonstrates that this type of training improves well-being in adolescents. So to me, that represents the heading, healthier minds. So section C, I give that the heading, healthier minds, which leaves us with section D. So we have a choice. It could be training the teenage mind, or it could be a 6-step training program. Now I've underlined 6-step because you're probably going to come across the number 6. So, but remember, we have 2 choices. So we need to double check. 6 classes were trained. That doesn't really have the same meaning as 6-step. So we move on and we find the word training and exercises. So then we can confirm that the best heading for section D is actually number 6, training the teenage mind. Often you're going to get what's known as a red herring, where one term or one word such as 6 might throw you off. And remember, it wasn't about a 6-step training program. So the best heading is actually number 6, training the teenage mind. Let's move on to the last question, or the last bunch of questions, which is matching information. Again, read the question carefully. And what you should be assessing, do you think this question is going to have you focusing more on skimming skills or scanning skills? That's a choice that you have to make for most questions. And in this case, I think you're going to be focusing more on scanning, right? So you're asked to match information. Where would you find that information in the different sections? One example has been given for us. So how recently the study was completed, that information can be found in section A. Right, so again, we have done some skimming, so we should know where we can find this information. So let's go back to the question paper, and we're going to focus on scanning. So we've done our skimming. Hopefully, we can find some keywords in the reading itself. The first keyword we're going to look for are questions, or is questions. So questions that every participant was asked. Now, I find a word related to questions, which is the expression questionnaires. Now, you may remember this from the previous example. So the questionnaires measured the effect of the training on changes in mindful awareness. So clearly, that information can be found in section E. Then we move on to number 2. The keyword I'm going to look for is reactions. Now, this is a difficult one, because when I scanned, I wasn't actually able to find the word reactions. But if I look at the whole meaning, participants' reactions to the exercises. Now, I could find this in section C. Importantly, many of the students genuinely enjoyed the exercises and said they intended to continue them. Now, these are the harder questions. When you're scanning for particular words and you can't find them, then you just have to look at the bigger picture. In this case, in the test, you might not find this straight away. You could always just leave this one and come back to it. And then perhaps through a process of elimination, through answering the other questions first, you might narrow this one down. But in this case, reactions has the same meaning, or this tells us the reactions. Many of the students genuinely enjoyed the exercises. So the reaction was they enjoyed them. So section C has that information. Then we're going to scan for a couple of words from number 3, content and training costs. Again, I will tell you this is a more difficult question because this actually has the same meaning, content and training costs. This is curriculum. So section G, curriculum, tells us that that is the answer to number 3. Now, perhaps number 4 might be easier because I've underlined the words attentiveness and emotions in relation to the impact of the training. So hopefully, words like attentiveness and emotions are easier to scan for. In fact, in section F, we can see attention and emotions, so different parts of speech. But then, in relation to the effects of mindfulness training, clearly that information is in section F. Section A has been done for us. So now we're going to move on to the number of participants. Now, as a hint, anytime you see the number, you should also be looking for a number in the reading. And on the first page, we can see the number 155 boys. So researchers from the University of Cambridge analysed 155 boys. That is the number of participants in the study, 155. And finally, we come to number 7. Now, through a process of elimination, you may already know the answer, but it's always best just to make sure that you check. So we're going to be scanning for anything related to the kind of training. We may see the word training, which in this case, we don't see the exact word. Again, we see a part of speech, trained in mindfulness awareness. So what kind of training? the training was in mindful awareness. So we can be pretty sure that the answer to number 7 can be found in section D. So there we have it. I just want to remind you though that these questions are likely to be, well, this reading is likely to be section 3 in the general training reading test for IELTS. If you're doing the academic test, you can expect all 3 of the sections to be similar to this. So on the general training test, for the shorter reading sections 1 and 2, just start scanning for answers immediately. However, if you do have a longer reading like the one we did, use headings to locate information. In this case, we only had a title though, so this means you need to skim first to get an overview of the reading. Always read the first paragraph to give you an overview, and then skim the first sentence of each paragraph, which is usually the topic sentence. When you are scanning, look for synonyms or alternative phrases. So jump onto grade and see how well you can skim and scan. Practice until you are confident.